Hey, good evening and welcome everyone for our Pittsburgh user group .NET meetup. So we are based out of Pittsburgh, and I also want to thank .NET Foundation for helping us organize this event, and special thanks to Aneesh for helping coordinate a lot of things here and support the group. And we also welcome the virtual user group people from the .NET Foundation as well. Anish, as a person, we are going to have a talk today, and I will introduce Anish. Hello, Anish. Welcome to the group.
Hi, everybody.
I will hand it over to you, and you're all set, Anish.
Yeah, sure. So, thank you, Balaji, for inviting me to talk in your user group. And we are doing it first time using StreamYard. It's a little weird always to talk to a computer, right? you can get the visual cues, you can see people. It's more like acting actually. So, thanks for having me, first of all. And folks, my name is Anish. I work in New York City, and I'm an MVP in developer technologies. I'm a very new MVP. I'm not one of those heavyweights. I'm learning. I'm trying to help here and there wherever I can. And I also run a meetup group in New York City, which is .NET Mobile Developers Group. And I will talk about it in a bit. So I also work with .NET Foundation, working with some of the committees, working with, meetup groups all over the world and things like that, right? Okay, so today we will talk about ASP.NET and React, which is something I barely hear. When I hear React, I always hear Node.js, Express, Nest.js, or Fastify, or one of those frameworks, right? I hear .NET or ASP.NET Core. I always hear Angular. So we are going to pick some of the best from here and there, and then we will mix them together to build a practical application. We are not going to do the hello world. We are not going to create an API and just call it. We will talk about some of the tools out there, some of the libraries out there, and I will show you a hell lot of slides. I'm kidding. I'm not going to. We will have an interesting live demo, and TypeScript compiler is going to scream at me for sure. Would be very angry at me, and I hope we will be victorious towards the end of the event, right? So, having said that, I would like to start presenting my screen. So, I would need Balaji's help. Okay, here. All right. So, everybody is able to see my screen, right? I'm not going to click on the present button. Once I do that, then it becomes two screens and a lot of hell. So I'm just going to go with this way, right? So as we said about, I also volunteer at .NET Foundation, and they're looking for volunteers. It would be great to have more volunteers for different committees and interesting projects with .NET Foundation. And, .NET folks who are interested in building things and making the open source community in and around .NET bigger and better all over the world, please consider volunteering for .NET Foundation, right? And this is the user group. I'm one of the organizer of. And if you are in New York City, please do use the QR code and join. And before the pandemic, the group used to have a lot of events in one of the reactors in Microsoft 11 Times Square. Now more online, but that would change soon, ideally, right? So I hope I have given enough time for everybody to scan the QR code. So now, jumping right into React, right? So So React.js is as old as AngularJS. It's about 11 years old, if I'm not wrong. And Vue.js came in after 2 years of these were born. So that's about 9 years old. So React.js is a quite mature framework. There is a lot of production applications all over the world built using React.js. There are certain Chrome plugins you can install to check if React.js is running in a specific website or not. So yeah, it's one of the most famous front-end frameworks right now. So it's a library. When you say something is a library, it gives you a lot of flexibility in choosing the different tools which you want to build with. Angular is not a library; it's a framework. It's like .NET. It comes with the bells and whistles. It provides you the end-to-end solution, right? It's more opinionated. It gives you specific way of doing things. It's compilers, it's web packs, it's all built into it. So it's easier to work with Angular. But React is easier to learn, but it's a library, so you may need help of some other JavaScript libraries to work with it, right? So virtual DOM, it's an interesting thing. I think they introduced it at the React team originally introduced it. It's a way of representing DOM in memory and only updating that, and then eventually using a process called reconciliation, applying those virtual DOM changes to the real DOM. Real DOM is what the tree structure browser uses to render things, right? So yeah, React is more unidirectional data flow, unlike Angular. So Angular, you can have data flow in both directions. Hello, Jeremy. How are you? Okay, so it is very component based. When I say it's very component based, it's like an onion. It's just you peel it, you see everything is made of components. And it's learn once, write anywhere is what they say. I wouldn't do it everywhere, but of course, web, it's one of the prime libraries to build front end for browsers. For mobile, it is a good cross platform framework for mobile, like React Native. It's very good, probably comparable to Flutter and Maui, .NET Maui, and things like that. It's not it's a cross-platform native development framework, so it's not like Apache Cordova where you render HTML into a web view, right? Okay, so whatever React does, other frameworks does too. So Angular is there, Vue is there, Vue.js is there. Vue.js is actually faster um, based on the benchmarks. Angular is much more, a framework where everything works out of the box without having to bring in 20 different libraries and other things, right? So why would we talk about React.js? I will tell you the real reasons, right? The real reasons are very interesting, and I will tell you about that. Okay, so just a quick thing about the virtual DOM. This is the reconciliation process. Then it works it works in memory and then applies to the real DOM using a process call. It's like a garbage collection. It runs once in a while based on it makes the call when it want to run, and then it applies those changes to the DOM. So you see the changes, right? Generally, props and state changes, that's when it applies, and they are generally queued and applied together. We will not talk about the fundamentals of React, or we wouldn't go into the details of React. We would focus more tonight on building something real with it, and see how we can build a production application with it, right? So now, as I promised, why React? It's fast enough, as I was saying. It's performing very well. It's very easy to learn. That's another thing, right? Angular is very difficult to learn. And the best bullet point on the list, I was mentioning it right there, right? The best bullet point on the list is it has a huge community support, right? That's an interesting thing. So people love it. Nobody knows why, but they all love it. There is a lot of supporting libraries. There is, you want to add state management. React has 25 different ways to do it. You want to add state management in Angular, maybe there are one, maybe two. That's it, right? So you have a lot of supporting libraries, which works very well with React, and they do. They are built for React. Some of them are really built for React and having React in mind when they started it, right? So such as Recoil, Redux would work with other libraries, but Redux was built, having React in mind. So the knowledge is transferable as well. So unlike Angular, where you can build cross-platform native applications. When I say cross-platform applications, it's like you write once and it runs on Android and iOS, and sometimes on Mac, sometimes on Windows. .NET MAUI is like, it runs on Mac and Windows. Flutter is also, it runs on Mac and Windows and all of that. React Native runs on iOS and Android and on web. But I wouldn't probably use React Native for web development. I would use React instead. But it runs really nice on Android and iOS, and there is a huge community support there, along with some amazing tools like Expo, right? Expo, you can have builds, you can using EAS build, you can directly deploy to Android Play Store or iOS App Store. You probably don't even need a MacBook to develop. It's that sophisticated. I know. When it comes to Flutter or when it comes to .NET MAUI, I'm not so sure whether they are there yet. I actually build using React Native, and I used to build using Xamarin before, so I know that already. Another thing is React.js is super famous. The Vue is, in my opinion, is a good framework. Angular is not bad. None of them are bad, but React is there at the top, and people love it. It's the interest over time is number one, and it has been number one for several years, right? When you compare the top frameworks, I'm not going to compare the other framework like Svelte or Ember.js or any of that, but these are right now the most popular ones. So here, when you look at NPM charts of how much React is being downloaded through NPM installs, right? So when you look at those numbers, you can see that React is by far so much ahead. Every month, I think this is every week. Every week, about 20 million downloads of the core React library, compared to 3 or 4 of Angular or Vue or Svelte or all of that, right? All of them combined together doesn't have those many downloads as of React actually. This looks interesting to me towards the end of 2022. I don't know, is it an anomaly or something? And this spike for Vue was interesting. Probably everybody had a New Year resolution to learn Vue. Don't know, right? So now, finally, developers like, as I said, developers love React, and why we mix them, right? That's the whole idea of this entire talk. We will build some applications, but why mix them? It's a rare combination that you see people mix React and ASP.NET Core. They are one of the two top in the first 10 professionally used web frameworks. Why not mix them, right? So React.js is at the top, right below Node, right? No wonder Node is number one. And ASP.NET Core is right there too, right? And most loved web frameworks. And then when you consider other frameworks, .NET is number one, right? React Native is also there in the first 10. And I could actually show the entire Stack Overflow developer survey, but which I don't want to. But considering these things, when you look at all these numbers, um, ah, sorry. So when you look at all these numbers, React and .NET sort of comes in the first 10 everywhere, wherever the comparison is at, right? So, okay, that's Visual Studio Code, synchronous tools, and yeah, leave the operating system loud and dreaded. You see, Rust, everybody wants to learn Rust. C Sharp is there, you see that? So we are mixing all of those what people love today to build something nice, right? Okay, all right. So now that's all out of the way. One interesting thing about React, I just want to mention, if you join this call without having any knowledge about it at all, it's going to look very weird, right? It's going to look like we mixed HTML and JavaScript. If you have been coding for 15 or 16 years, you probably know how we used to write JavaScript with on-click and stuff like that. So React is going to look a lot similar to that, right? So we are going to have HTML and JavaScript all over the file mixed, right? Okay, so now let us get straight to the demo, right? Before we go to the demo, and 1 second. All right. I'm not going to use Visual Studio's default template to create a React application today. There are default templates from Visual Studio to build React applications. Why I'm not using it is because they are not sophisticated enough, and some of the they uses older versions of React, and it takes time for them to update them. So I have one of my favorites, which I downloaded, a template where React and ASP.NET Core is mixed along with some of the best practices of .NET, some of the best tools in .NET and React comes with it. So that is the project I'm going to use as a template instead of Visual Studio's default template today. And this is what it is. I will post a link to this on the comment section in case anybody wants to have a look at it. So thanks to whomever created it, right? So he is on top of it, and these things are updated regularly. So this is already on ASP.NET Core 7, React and Redux. Okay, good thing is that it's already on TypeScript. React team was late in adapting TypeScript compared to Angular. Angular 2 is actually called Angular. It was called AngularJS before. So Angular adapted TypeScript early on. So the React community was late in adapting TypeScript. So this is entirely in TypeScript, which is good. So it's not static types, but at least we get the gimmick of it. And it, as soon as you save files, it sort of re-renders on the UI. Is what's called art module replacement. So this is all the good stuffs in here. Some of them are built in. And Redux is a state management machine, if you know what a state management machine is. If you don't know what a state management machine is, state management machines are state management on the web is something done to keep the data alive or some of the information alive within single page applications, right? So when the single page applications come in, which is React and Angular and all of that, the single page applications are rendered using in one URL and using a routing mechanism, and then parts of the page gets changed using AJAX calls or XHRs or XEOs or fetch or whatever that is, right? So some of the information we wanted to save somewhere. So there is a local storage, which is always there on the browser side, but it was easier to build a state on the browser side. Generally, internet is stateless, right? So you built a state on the browser side, and that mechanism is called state management mechanism, right? So there are different tools to build state on React, such as Redux or Recoil, or there are Jotai. There are so many, right? There can be GraphQL based Apollo client. No, I don't think Apollo client is a state management. I think it's a query caching mechanism. So there are so many MOBEX. Yeah, I forgot that. So there are so many state handling things. Think of it like a global variable, a global store, where we learned that global variables are bad back in the day with JavaScript, but a sophisticated way of handling global variables where things are exposed using interfaces or contracts or that sort is what a state management mechanism is. In simply put, you can feel it and work with it like a global variable, right? Not really a global variable, but a safe way to use it, sort of, right? It's just a comparison. Don't say it's a global variable to anybody, right? So now this is what we are going to use here, and now I would run it, and it will run and create a simple page like this, right? This is nice, right? I like it. It's a ghost. So I'm running this application. It's as is. All I did is I did the npm install extra. So now npm install takes a lot of time. So that's why I downloaded and kept it there. And then instead of running the npm install here, I just ran the npm install earlier on and then started running the project. So now this is the default home, or I would say the home page or index page of this particular application, right? So now let me just quickly show you the structure of the application on both the React side and ASP.NET side. Okay, so what you see in this folder, this is how even Visual Studio creates it. There will be a folder for React app called a client app, and there will be the rest of the stuff is for ASP.NET Core, right? So now the client app is where the React app is living. So if you see an npm install, that is going to happen against the client app, right? If you see any of the node commands, that's going to happen in the client app. So remember that. So think of it this way: there was a React client-side JavaScript, TypeScript files and resources taken, and there is ASP.NET Core resources, C# files, controllers, services, entity framework, all of that taken and put together and marry them together into a single solution. That's what it is. So even Visual Studio, when you go and say new create React template with Redux or without Redux, it kind of creates similar folder structure. And remember, a portion of that is what is a React piece, and the rest is for .NET, right? So having said that, I'm going to open the program.cs. The setup is gone. The setup.cs is gone with the newer versions of things. So as you could see, it says SPA. It doesn't say React anywhere. I mean, the structure is going to be similar for Angular if you are creating a Vue, ASP.NET Core and Vue application, or ASP.NET Core and Angular application. So the structure is going to be similar. So they're going to call it, instead of React SRC path, they call it single page application SRC path. And they're saying client app is the folder of interest, right? And now they are going to use it everywhere. You see this here, add sparse static file. So it's saying that React files will be served from this directory on production. Okay, so when you do a production build, a disk folder is going to get created, and that disk folder will have all the resources needed to render the React or single page application app, right? Including JavaScript, CSS, or whatever that is, or images, or whatever that is. So now, where else this folder is used? Somewhere else too. So here it says use SPA. So this is going to set the source path of things, and you can also see on development only a special npm start script is being used, and it says use a React development server. So let's quickly see what that is, right? So it's already built into ASP.NET Core. That's the beauty of things, right? So they already built all of this. So if you look at it, see, the documentation is coming from Microsoft, right? So when you look at it, it says handles requests by passing them through an instance of create React app server. So it creates a create React app server for you when you are just doing the debugging or when you're building the app, right? So the manual work is not needed. That's why that line of code is there, right? So this is all good. So what it means that this template, or rather the Visual Studio template, is built in a way that when you do the when you do the compilation and when you run it, it runs both. What does it run? It runs the server side APIs and ASP.NET Core. Also, it runs the React app for you, and it does all the connections for you. You don't have to worry about that portion, right? Here you can see the course right now says the allow all, and the course config is added. That means that the React is able to interact with the API, which is going to run on localhost and things like that. Another thing I wanted to show you before we go, right? So you see this CS project file. The CS project file has some interesting things. It says spa root, it's a variable. It says it's client app. So it is also talking about client app. Now let's see what it does with it. So it does with it is that it's going to exclude the node modules, which is for sure. There will be a node modules folder which comes under client app. It's going to exclude in showing that. Do not show them in the project, so it's not going to appear here. So that's good. Now where else it is used? Okay, nice. It's used on the publish run run Webpack. Webpack is the build tool for JavaScript frameworks. So I'm not going to talk about Webpack. So it says that two executions has to happen. One is an npm install and the second one is an npm run build. So it says, okay, so once the publish Webpack happens, these two commands are going to execute. Okay, what about while I'm debugging? While I'm debugging, it says, okay, debug ensure. So it executes the node version to make sure that there is a node available. And it also makes sure that an npm install happens. So this is how Visual Studio knows. It doesn't really know about React. Yes, it does know inherently about ASP.NET Core. So what it does, the MS build, what MS build does, or what Visual Studio build does, is that it also do the npm install for you and make sure that the React is ready and the files are served to the browser properly, right? So all of this is, is a working directory, spa root. That means on client app, go to client app and do this command, right? So it says restoring dependencies. This is exactly like NuGet, but for JavaScript or React, right? So it's a restoring dependencies, just like Visual Studio do the restoring of NuGet when you're doing the first time build. It does also do everything for you when you're building ASP.NET Core React application, right? Okay, so having said all of that, okay, I just went through the server side portion of it. Also, you can see that this template came with OpenAPI built into it. I don't think this, if you choose Visual Studio template, it's going to be there. So the OpenAPI already came into it. OpenAPI means that it's just a standard of defining API endpoints. So what it means that an API endpoint you create here in this application, it's sort of during the build, whatever we do with the Swagger and OpenAPI on the builder services, it makes sure that those endpoints get added to this application settings.json. Sorry, not so application settings, OpenAPI.json. And those endpoints are being described in an neutral way. When I say neutral way, it's not JavaScript, it's not using .NET types, it's not using any other types. It's just in a way, in a standard that anybody can understand. So for example, you wanted to consume an API using which is already using OpenAPI JSON standard, you can access that file and possibly generate types for you. So which I will show if I get time today, right? Okay, so here you can see there are some of these controllers which we have. Let me just close that. Okay, so it says there is a sample data controller. Yeah, sure. And there is a method called weather forecast, which is an endpoint. And this is all the parameters. There is an integer in 32 and all of that, right? So it is for sure. So it returns an enumerable of weather forecast class, and the API is talking about that. So the response, it says it's an array of weather forecast. It's an array of weather forecast, right? So it's as I was saying, it is an agnostic way of telling this is what the API is without telling it is .NET or without telling it is Java API or Python API. It's just saying that this is what the API does. This is the endpoint. In an agnostic way, this endpoint takes these many things, these many data types, and it gives us back this particular object or a data type, right? So that is what the OpenAPI JSON stands for. So similarly, we have nswag, where it tells you this is how the build process know how to output this file, OpenAPI file. So now I will show you it in action in a moment. Then you will know. Okay, let me just quickly stop it. Before we go into React, let's create something here, right? Okay, let's add a new item. Okay, we are doing a demo today, so okay, demo controller. Okay, so we are doing a live demo, so it's a demo controller.cs. All right, now this demo controller, all right, I would rather, you know what? Okay, life is easy this way, isn't it? Okay. All right, so we have all the things we need. We don't need any of this. We don't need any of this. Okay, let's say hello. And let's return a string. And let's not take in anything and make things complex. Say return hello. All right. Okay, I'm writing JavaScript here, right? This is the problem. Okay. All right. So let me just do the build, right? I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to run the application. I'm just building, right? Nothing fancy. I just created a new controller, and the controller has one method, say hello, and I just built it. Now let's go into OpenAPI and search for hello. Oh, there it is. See, this is the magic, right? It's not a magic. We have written code in program.cs for this thing to happen. We configured it using nswag.json to generate this JSON, and it takes in parameters. It look at all the endpoints, and it puts all the details in there. It says there is a schema on the response, which is a type string, which is correct. It returns a string, and its name is say hello. It's an operation ID, and you can access this say hello API using this URL. So you have to say localhost colon port number and then this, that, and then this API would return this, right? So now we actually dissected the ASP.NET core portion of it. Now let's go into the React portion of it, right? So let me just quickly show you some of the items. The package.json is where you say all that React script start and all of it, right? These things happen behind the scenes for you. You can see them in the logs when you look at the console, when you start debugging and things like that. But they happen for you, so you don't need to worry about it. So these are the dependencies we have, some of the dependencies we have, which means that these are NPM packages. And these are the packages we need to run it locally. It's a dev dependencies, right? Okay, so here is a TypeScript configuration file where I say what type of node and module and all of that we use. This is an important piece. we need to say this. It's a ReactJS, and it's a next of ES next is what we are using, right? You can change them, specify them, whatever node resolution we are using, and things like that, right? Common or node. Okay, so we go into the SRC folder, where ignore the store for now, right? So this is for Redux. We talked about the state management. This is for Redux. This project uses Redux toolkit. Redux state management has been there for a long time, and one of the main complaints about Redux state management was that it adds a lot of boilerplate code for doing simple things. So they came up with something called Redux toolkit, which also comes with something called RTK query, which is a query caching mechanism, right? So the Redux toolkit has a different way of doing things, where you can create slices, and I still consider these are a little bit big, but when it comes to doing things or having a state, there are other state management tools which I use. I used to use Redux, but I kind of moved to Recoil, which I felt much more a lighter version of doing things, and it was a breeze, and it feels and looks like React state management, inbuilt state management when you use it, right? Okay, so now these are the components where you have checkboxes and things like that. When you look at checkbox, it's just this uses style components. Just ignore that. So basically, the HTML input elements. That's it, right? That's the only thing you need to worry about in all of these things, right? Since we used a template, it comes with everything built in. But we are not going to use any of this. We are not going to use complex input elements or forms. So I just want to show you the folder structure. That's it, right? So here, the main ones are the containers, right? These are the pages, the home page, the dashboard page, the fetch data page, and all of it, right? So when you look at it, okay, so it says, let me run this. So this is the page which actually renders as a home page. And that sits inside the dashboard component, the function component, right? Everything React renders is a component. There used to be no class and function component, and nowadays everybody writes everything using function component. I learned to use React when use effect and function component was there, so I never wrote class components. Lucky me, right? So function components, can have its own local state using React set state, and it can have also global state using Redux or Recoil of that sort, right? Okay. So, or it can be stateless. Function components can be stateless. It does not have to have state at all. But now using hooks, it can have state. So that is why people migrated from class component to function component, because function components couldn't have state earlier. Okay, that's what my understanding is, right? As I said, I started with function components and everything was already there. Okay, so now this is our application which we are running again. Okay, Google is talking to me saying have a data breach and things like that. Okay. All right. So now, as we see, this is what the home page is. If you look at this, it should be here in this page. Yeah. So I just I delete some of that and then just press save. What happens is it should read saved since I'm learning. I don't think it did. It has to have the whole module replacement built in. 1 second. All right. If it doesn't, we will. Oh, it did. It took some time, so it did re-render as I actually saved the file. So which is not fancy anymore. It used to be because pretty much every framework has it now. Okay, so It's called hot module replacement or hard reloading and then all of that, right? Different names people use, right? Okay, so now what we are going to do with this is that the idea of today's demo, right? I sort of dissected the things for you. Okay, I didn't talk about the app.tsx. This is where it starts. And when you look at the index.tsx, you can see the app renderer happens there. So this is where the root of things, right? This is where the React starts. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the React side, except the API. We will talk about the API later. So, okay. So React is built using components. Even these containers are components. As I was saying, it's like onion. You peel it, you see more components. You peel it, you see more components, right? And this is another component. And you may see different components sitting in one component, right? So the entire thing is built using components. Okay. So leave the config, components, assets, and I think we did talk about pretty much everything. Now let's go to the demo, and what are we gonna do with the demo, right? Okay, so this is what we are going to do. Okay, add a new API, right? And what else we need to do? Add a new React page and add a new page and route to that React side. This is ASP.NET Core side. What else? Okay. Display some data on the new page. Okay, now this is generally how demos work. People hit an API, they display data in a page, but we are going to do things a little different here, right? So we're going to, as I was saying, the idea of today's demo is not going to show how React, the basics of React or basics of ASP.NET Core, but how well they gel together. And the strongest, okay, the strongest advocate of React is its community support, as I said, the first bullet point. Second, the beauty, it can dance with a lot of libraries. We will look at it today, right? And we will look at how well we can use some of those libraries to build a production ready app really fast. So that's what we're going to try to do. So now we have set our agenda. This is our agenda for the demo. And we are going to start building things from here, right? So as I was saying, we need to build a new page, right? So let's call that new page demo. Why not, right? So this is the demo page, and I copied from here. And what would I call it? Demo. Sure. I don't need any of this. All I need is a function component from React. I don't need any of that. And okay, all gone. And I am going to export demo function component from this file. It's not called, yeah, it's called a demo wrapper, right? So now let's say hello new demo page. Okay, great. So now we have that, right? So we have created a new function component. We are going to use it like a page. So you can use that function component as part of the page or use it like a page. So if you have a router, you're going to, if you are familiar with other frameworks like Angular, you have a router. And even ASP.NET Core has its own with the Blazor and stuff. So you have a router, you route to that page where this function component will render as a page, right? It takes the entire space of the browser. So now we have that. Now let's see. This is dashboard, this is demo, and this is the index. Okay, let's add him to the index, right? Copy paste to the rescue. So let's say demo from demo. So we are going to, so now we can use this elsewhere. So where is our router, right? So let's look at it. Let's look at, should be somewhere here. There could be a router configuration somewhere. Not there. Oh, there. You see? Okay. So there is a file with a lot of routes. You see why we have /home working is because of that. So we were showing a /home, and that worked because it's part of the routing module, right? So similarly, what we're going to do is we're going to say we just created a new page called demo, and and then we are going to have that demo page as part of the router. Now, where these routes are plugged in, that would be interesting to see, right? So now let's see if Visual Studio can help us. Find all references. Oh, nice. On TypeScript side. Beautiful, right? So it is routes.map. Fantastic. So here at the root level of the app, all these routes are being added, and they are being injected from this config file. You see, routes are coming. This is the routes, right? I actually pressed F12 key, go to definition. So the routes are coming, and then they are being added here. So all we need to do is just add it here. Similarly, any template with ASP.NET Core and React, this one or any other one, or the built-in Visual Studio Code one, will have this already, right? So there will be some route somewhere, one or two routes, sample route, some sample fetch data, sample get the weather or something like that. So I added this route, and now let's see if this route is working for us. Okay, the browser is up. We are 45 minutes into the presentation. We probably might need another 40 minutes or so, and we will be done. That's the idea. Okay. All right. It's loading up. Some data I'm going to put in there. This is all fake usernames and passwords, right? All right, nice. So now, instead of home, I'm going to say I want to go to demo, right? Which I just created. Let's see what it says. It did not go there. Okay, you know what happened is demo, and I said dashboard here. I should have said demo. See, mistake. Okay, now demo component. So this is the function component we just built, right? So we wanted to go there. Oh, see, I just saved it and it automatically rendered. Hello, new demo page. Now, back to home page. So we actually built a new page, and we did route to that. That's done. We actually built a small API, but we are not using that API yet. So now the things we need to do is we have to build a new API, and we have to show that data coming back from the API here using some interesting techniques, right? Let's get to it. So now we are going to go all in with coding. And here is the demo controller. Okay, this is say hello, right? Let's see. Okay. I love copy pasting things, right? Which makes my life easy. Okay, here we go. Here, IEnumerable, I don't want it. Okay, what do we want to return? Get, okay. We are doing a demo for a .NET user group. Let's talk about that, right? Get user group. Okay, we don't need any parameters. So here we say .NET user group. Okay. No, needed. Okay, now I'm doing some bad things here. I'm just going to put the class in here, but generally you would put it in another file, right? But you get the idea. We're doing it demo. We can do anything. So public. So the idea is with the API, right? I just want to bring in the data about today's event, which is happening right now, into the UI and then display that information, right? So in order to do that, I need a class which says .NET user group. And eventually, this application, if it gets matured and then somebody take it to production, and then this application becomes shows a list of user groups and list of events into the page, right? So we are going to start simple. We are going to start with one user group, one event, right? So here, public string here, user group name. What would I say? User group name. Okay, group name. All right. Okay. Okay. Here I'm going to delete that and then say organizer name. And what else? Okay, here we go. Event name. And number of attendees, right? Okay, nice. So now what is it saying? Consider declaring the property as nullable. No, that's some of the new features. Okay, no, thank you. Okay, here I'm going to say this is action result. There's nothing fancy going on here. It's just a regular .NET API, and you folks are all in a .NET related meetup, and we have done this 100 times already, right? So here, variable user group is equal to new .NET user group. All right, event group name is equal to Pittsburgh .NET user group, right? And then organizer name is Baladi, right? What else? Event name is, I'm just making something up, right? Hey, .NET React. All right. Okay. So here, number of attendees. I don't know how many. I'm just going to say 50, right, or 100. Okay. So now what we're gonna do? Return okay. Okay. So now we have an API, right? A simple API edit, and all it does is it just creates an instance of this particular class, fill in some values, and then give me back that instance through the API, right? Let's see if this API is working first before we do anything further with the React side. With ASP.NET Core, the idea is to use ASP.NET Core as an API. Some places you may need some extra stuff like server-side rendering, or rendering a layout, or some sort. But most of the time, it's used as an API. It is ideal not to mix that with a lot of Blazor code, or then it could get messy. Where is the guy? Okay, there it is. Okay, started loading faster and faster. Nice. Now, all right, let's see API. Okay, what does it say? API slash demo slash this. Okay, let's see. API slash demo slash this. Beautiful. So we are getting the data back on the client side already. So now what we are going to do is we are going to show it in our React app. So before we do that, there are certain ways to fetch data using native browser fetch using Axios and things like that. We are not going to use any of those routes. We are going to use it slightly different, and I will tell you why. We will use, as I was saying, our focus is on some of the cool libraries out there which help React to be one of the top frameworks, even though that's not the best performing framework, nor it is actually the best framework. It's actually the most used framework, which is, it's like the most famous guy, right? Okay, so here, let us go back to our page, right? Okay, so we have to, okay, I don't really like this. All right, now return. It's a little more explicit way of doing things. The other one was just one-liner. Okay, nope. Okay, great. All right, console dot error. Here. All right. Okay, so now we needed to call the API and display the data here. Let me introduce you to something interesting, right? Okay, here. My machine is a little slow. Okay, React query. This is one of the cool things we can do when we are playing with React, along with the state management machine options. There are tons of libraries for React to do API caching. When I say API caching, right? For example, we are showing a dashboard to the user, and the user went to some other page, did something, and come back, and we are still showing the dashboard to the user. Nothing changed, no backend data changed. And then what happens in general, everywhere, including React or wherever you are building applications, in general, what happens is you fetch the API again, which is a database round trip, right? Okay, you have you have Redis, you have that, you have this, all of that is great, right? But still, it's going to go into the internet. It's going to have to get to the Redis and come back and show the data and all of it. So some of these API caching libraries, what they do is they avoid this round trip. So when you look at the developer console, you wouldn't see an API query, but you go to another page and come back and nothing is fired, no network request was made, and then voila, the data is there. It behaves as if it's an offline, it's like a real app, like an offline app thing without making the API calls. So these libraries help you achieve that. And the beauty of these sort of libraries, they work in tandem with either fetch calls, or they work in tandem with Axios, which is a data fetching library, or any other data fetching library. They do cache them similar to that of a state. So you can consider the data being cached as a state, and they have different ways and hooks to invalidate that state. For example, you click on that particular row in the dashboard, you went somewhere and you edited some value, and then you came back to the home page. You want the data to reflect. So what happens is, what you will do is you would actually you would actually invalidate those queries. So, okay. All right. So now let us just put React query into our ASP.NET React application and see how that behaves, right? All right. So this is the guy, React query. Now what we're going to do is we don't have a terminal. Nice. All right. Let's you can do all these things with Visual Studio Code as well. I just use this because I have a license. That's it. Okay. So having said that, we are going to install this. And as I said, React lives in the client app, right? Okay. So React lives in the client app, and anything I'm installing, I have to install it there. So npm I this React query. And what is the next step? All right, installation. Okay, I did that. What do I need to do next? Next is just use it. All right, set it up using in the app. Okay, I have to set it up in the app. Okay, all right. That, where is the app? The React app. When I say app, I mean React app. No, not there actually, because this is where the providers are set. Okay, nice. So let's do this. Right. Let's make sure that this is done. Okay, it's done. So that's done means Visual Studio will help me. Help me. Yes, it does know where it is. So it is helping me already. Now, what do I do with the query client? Okay, I use it as a query client provider and similar to other providers. Okay, similar to other providers. Nice. Okay, here. All right. Okay, so that is good enough. I think so. Okay, now I have to ask Visual Studio to help. All right, that's coming from React query. So now we are, I think the basic setup is done. Okay. Let's see if this works. A second. We are building this as we speak. It's not a pre-scripted demo per se. I have done this once, but it's still, we as we go through it, we will face issues. We are sure that TypeScript would yell at us. Okay, here queries, important defaults, kickstart. Let's go back to kickstart. Get to dos. Where is it get to do? Okay, it's not there. It's coming from here. That's not good. Dev tools. Okay, here queries. There should be another way of. All right, query keys. Not that. Query functions. Okay, let's see. Parallel queries. Not that. Queries, and tries generation mutations. Okay. Okay, we will start with some one of these, right? And then we will see how that goes. Okay, let's pick it up. And put it right here in our demo page. Where is our demo page? Right here. Okay, use query. What we need is React query, use query with fetch. We will use with the basic fetch, right? All right. right. Okay, great. So let us do that. Okay, and we don't need that actually. No, you know what? I didn't copy it. I did not copy it. This. Okay, here. So fetch user group info. That is the API we created. And where is it living? Where is it living? Anybody remember? Localhost demo? No. API. Oh yeah, there. That's where it is living. Okay, great. Nice. All right. Now fetch user group info. And we're going to say that in here. We're going to say user group. Okay, this is just a cache key, right? So it can cache things. Okay, it's loading, is data, is error. Okay, I will explain all of this in just a moment. Okay. So as I was saying earlier, right, these sort of tools work and play nice with other libraries like Axios. Instead of Axios, I'm using a the browser fetch right here. And what I'm telling is, A, go fetch this data from this API and you get a result. How about you cache it using a cache key, right? So when you look at it, you see this query key. Also, sorry, that's a query key. So it's going to cache those data, and whenever that page reloads or whenever you go away from that page and come back, as long as you don't invalidate that query. Sometimes you have to, because some data becomes stale because some operations happen in the backend or the database. So as long as those data is not invalidated, it will reuse what is already available in the cache, right? So when I say cache, it's not a browser cache. It's a cache built by the React query. So it just do the fetch for you using whatever library you wanted to use. And once it gets a result, it caches it for you so that you can reapply them and reuse them, right? So now, all right, we're not going to talk about error in here, right? Okay. How about we do something interesting here, right? So we got the value, and what are we going to do? We can just label, right? Okay, so we have to make sure that the query is going fine and the data is coming back. So what we are going to do is we are going to render that in here into a div, right? Just using some JSON stringify or something, right? So let's say, all right, let's do this, and dollar here JSON dot stringify. Okay, so now this is destructuring. This is destructuring. Okay, somebody was asking a question. No, Sam, it was unnecessary for the demo. That's why I deleted it. But of course, from where we copied the code, the block could be old and the variable could be called something else now. Yeah. Okay. So now, what? Where we are? Okay, where we are? Data. Okay. I'm going to give an alias to the data. User. All right, UG info, right? UG info, user group info, right? So let's say if it is coming here. So did you notice that I didn't use any use effect? I didn't use any side effects. I didn't do anything crazy. I didn't do any promises. All I did is I just used a library. I said, hey, when you're loading, say loading on the page in a span. And when you get the data, just render the data. As of now, just render it as JSON, right? So now let's see how this behaves, right? Okay, here we go. Fetch user group info. Await this. Okay. I don't see any problems so far. Let's see what happens. If time permits, we will take this one notch further and not write any code at all to build all of this, right? But I have built something. I will show you if we are not able to reach there. I have built another another um, another sample code using some similar technique. So I will show that code so you can see that the OpenAPI JSON, which we talked about, the agnostic way of describing API endpoints, how would we use that to generate all these queries, right? The queries, the types, all of that. So you don't write, we don't even write any of this. We can survive without writing any of this. It will be just one lines and the data sits here magically. Okay, so here we are, and now we are going to go to demo. So now we know the demo API works. So we just see if the demo page is rendering our JSON properly. Yeah, it's coming back. Beautiful, isn't it? Now it is going to the API, it's hitting the demo API, and it is coming back and it's rendering it as JSON. Now, how about just beautify this a little bit better, right? So as I was saying earlier on, there are a lot of libraries, frameworks work well with React. Bulma is one of them. Bootstrap is one of them. You like atomic CSS? There is Tailwind CSS. I'm not very good with beautifying things or aesthetically, not very good. So I kind of burn my hands with Tailwind CSS. So I like Bulma, where I don't want to go to the nitty gritty of styling things. I rather stay a little higher, not too higher, but a little higher, and then I can display some information, right? So Bulma is already built into this template, which is this library. One second, I may have Bulma somewhere. Okay, so this is exactly like Bootstrap, if you have used it, but it's much more simple and lighter version of it. And since it is already there, we are going to use Bulma just to display some of the data we just got back, right? And let's see how that goes, right? Okay, here. Okay, I rendered it, and one thing is React doesn't work well with class. Instead, you have to say class name everywhere. So that's something you need to remember. But the ID is there to the rescue. So now let's see what it displays, right? No, where is the UI? Where is the UI? Am I still running it? Oh, no, not that one. Let me see. No. Too many open, right? I have to close some of them. No, not API. We are not talking about APIs no more. We started building real stuff. Okay. All right. So the first column, the second column, third column, fourth column is already rendered. Nice. So it internally uses Flexbox. If you want to use Flexbox, it's up to you. But I wanted to show you folks something real quick and nice, right? And looks nice too. So this is gone. This we don't, as of now, leave it there. And here, demo wrapper. So I'm just gonna say card in here. So the card, this class comes from Bulma. So it's going to make it a card. Okay, first column, I'm going to say label. Okay, UG info, right? That's the variable, right? UG info dot. If I remember correctly, it's the group name. Let's be a little safe because the query may not be completed on the first render of React. Okay, before we do it, group name, organizer name. Okay, let's do the organizer name. Okay, small letter for JavaScript because that's how it is coming through. And let us see. And let's do this. All right, should be good. Let's see what happens. No. All right. Now what I need to do is that. Okay, let's do the same thing here. Done. Okay. All right, Pittsburgh.NET user group and Balaji is coming as 2 columns. Okay, nice. So now I don't need this no more. Is it a card? Maybe it is a card, but I can see it. So let me put some padding and margin it for it. This is like atomic CSS, but as I said, not as atomic CSS. Oh, now it looks like a card. Nice, isn't it? So, okay, let us add some more data. And then we go from there. And then we go to the next one, right? Organizer name. Oh, hold on. What did I do? I made a mistake. Group name. Group name. Okay. I should have used strong. All right. And I'm going to repeat that actually instead of this. Organizer. Okay. Let's make sure what we're doing is correct. Nice. Okay. Problem with that is we need to end that guy. Right. Okay. So now we're talking. So now we started displaying the data. For brevity, I'm not going to display the event information and other things, but which we can if we want to. The event name and number of attendees we can display in the UI. So now we hit the API. We hit the API using use query, and we also display the data which comes back here. So now, before we do that, this is loading and we are rendering a span. Let's check if that is happening, right? Okay, let's refresh this. All right, you see the loading there for a moment? So the loading is coming. So the entire bells and whistles is built into it. So generally what we do is we do a lot of circus for this, to be honest, right? You know, back in the day, you're like, okay, the call is in progress, then do this. If the call is complete, do this. And then see, everything is sitting in available, right? So you just use it. And I did not even write any use effect. I didn't write any side effects or any of that. It's all there, but the tools are masking it away from you. So because then we can deliver real value without writing a lot of code, right? So now we are at 6:20. We may be a little bit behind when it comes to showing the everything works together like a magic using OpenAPI JSON. So let me introduce you to a second tool, right? This is called Orwell. So what it does is okay, let me go back. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't remember. You remember this OpenAPI JSON file we talked about, right? So this tool is capable of taking this JSON file and spitting out the React query, which is, we were showing that use query or React query, spitting out React query for you. It is not only able to spit out React query, it can spit out Angular query, it can spit out SWR query or any of that type. So what we generally do is we actually spit out React query from it, right? So how we do it with this tool is we actually install this and then run a command and give it a configuration file. And what happens next is pure magic. So let us see if we can quickly get there. We have 10, it may go over by 10 minutes, but where are we? Okay, here. Okay, we are at client app, and I don't want to install this globally. I'm going to install it locally, right? And I may have a note somewhere with the configuration file, right? Okay, 1 second. Is configuration have to type in. And,
Lost Anish. Give us a couple of minutes. He'll be back soon. Thank you for staying back.
okay, to see for last how many minutes, I don't know. If you can type in an answer, that would be good because my StreamYard connection was lost and I just realized that. Anybody in the call, you can type in YouTube and then
Anish,
yeah.
I think we were lost for like a couple of minutes here.
Couple of minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not bad. Okay, so I'm going to go over I was talking Okay, you guys all missed the best part. I'm just kidding, right? So, okay, we are running short on time. I will show you how these sort of tools work and play and dance well with React and ASP.NET. So you can build production ready app without writing a million lines of code, right? So here, we were here, right? We actually hit the API directly and then we display the error. So you see this particular entry, which I'm directly using without mentioning any of this, without mentioning which API I'm hitting. It is written for me by this tool, Orwell, right? The tool actually look at the OpenAPI JSON file, and what it does is it kind of creates all the API endpoints along with the types for me. So for example, user group was a class in C Sharp, and this guy create that in TypeScript for me. It looks at the type. It looks at every other detail, and it determines it's a nullable thingy, right? So it look at the type, and based on the type, it creates a TypeScript type for me. And you see, it automatically created an API endpoint for me. And this endpoint already knows that I would be receiving a .NET user group TypeScript um, type instance here. And this would be, you see mouse over and it shows .NET user group automatically. And all I need to do is I actually do get the type which I created on the .NET side on my JavaScript side by using these tools, right? So it's a group group name. So all that I did is I created a config file. I said I want to create, this is Orwell, which I was just showing you, if you folks haven't seen, which works with React, Angular, and all of that for different query frameworks. And I said, taking this OpenAPI JSON, which we were talking about throughout the night, and this OpenAPI JSON has all the endpoints described in some agnostic fashion. And I'm telling the tool, take in that, give me another file called demo API, and give me all the entries or the endpoints in React query fashion, massaged as React queries, which we are using use query. And also I have a custom Axios file, use that, right? So what the custom Axios file does is it just, it just describes the base URL and the other things. That's it, right? And sometimes you may have to massage date fields. For example, JavaScript date is not the same as .NET date and things like that, right? So if you were to go here on the developer PowerShell or even any command prompt per se, and if I delete this demo API.ts, I deleted this, right? This is auto-generated. As the tool said, it's auto-generated. That means that I can recreate it as many times as I want. And we are going to go to the client app. As I said, always stay there for any command prompt things. And let's see if I can. Okay, I take in the demo API config. Okay, great. I just say Orwell, create the demo API.ts file for me. So it's doing that job for me. So it's a Swagger client. So it works on the .NET side. Now it works on the React side. That is right, Michael. We are still benefiting from the modern structure. Yes. See, the entire file is generated for me. Every API endpoint in the application is sitting here. You can see sample data endpoint, you can see other endpoints and things like that, right? So now what we can do is, right? What we can do is, okay, see, this is all the line of code I wrote to hit an API and get the data and know whether the HTTP call is in progress, know whether there is an error, and that's it. I did not do anything else. one line of code. And if I want to use another API, it's already there. It's already available for me. I just use it and then say, hey, display the data, right? So let's see that in action. And sorry about me being disconnected. I didn't realize that StreamYard worked through browser. So I opened some other tabs. I didn't realize I was talking to myself. Sorry about it. All right, so we'll see this in action, and then I will wind up the demo. How important are fleshed out GitHub readmes versus a portfolio? Having apps deployed for demo code spaces so that employers can terminal my code. I did not quite understand what you mean by that, Sam. Fleshed out code spaces so that employers can terminal my code. I did not get what you were saying there. Your previous question, I'm switching careers and I just coming out of a boot camp. What are 3, 4 things that will catch me? A good LinkedIn profile for sure. Um, and look at a good LinkedIn profile generally gets you some traction, and sometimes some folks, especially startups, are interested in people contributing to open source. That's not always the case though, right? I have an open source library, um, about getting downloaded about 150,000 um, times a month. Angular library, right? Not React. And sometimes nobody talks about it, nobody asks anything about it. So, and being someone who has been at the same job for 9 years, I would be the wrong person to give you advice on that too. So all right, so let's get to the demo, please. Oh, there it is. See, it's coming, Pittsburgh Group, and that's stands.net. The data is here. The UI is, the data is fetched. All I did is one line of code at the end of the day, right? So this is how when we build things with ASP.NET and React, and when we go, production ready apps, we kind of chooses these tools, and this is where React shines, right? This is its shiny spot. There are nobody. When you want a core, you call React. You have thousands of libraries around you. You can pick and choose. The problem is upgrading. Sometimes npm gives you problems, but in general, it shines because of its community support, because of thousands of libraries built by folks contributing to open source. And there are better libraries out there. There are better frameworks, front-end frameworks out there. But this is where React shines. And that's why I use React. And that's why I think everybody should use React. And when it comes to job opportunities too, it's one of the best to be on. Okay, so back to Balaji. Any other questions? I was running short on time. I couldn't really go through all the questions there.
We didn't have as much. There were a couple of questions from Sam.
Okay, great. All right. So I think we can wind up. hope this was useful for everybody. And sorry about the glitch with the StreamYard. And I hope this was a useful session. And thank you so much, Bala, for having me.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. I know it was a little longer. Thanks everybody for staying back and tuning into our meetup this month. We'll try to keep this going. Thank you, Aneesh, for your time today.
All right. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
You can end the thing.